Okay, remember that you can find all the explanation اللي أنا هلا حكيته عن الداي acids والداي bases هون. Okay, so everything you need to know about the graphs that I just finished, you can find it right here in H2A, in again A2 minus, etc., etc. Okay, even for H3A. فعليا أنا حطيت an example of H3A هون. So you can have all of the curves separated as H3A as well. Now, indicators. Indicators are basically species that are used to indicate when you have reached the equivalence point. Any species that change color when you have changed from one pH to the other. This is all they have to do. You're not responsible to know the chemical formula of indicators. You're not responsible to know any of this. You just have to know that it changes color when it changes pH. هلا هيدا change in color in pH, it has to do with the pKa of the indicator. So نحن بكل بساطة ال indicators are acid-base couples. هني acid-base couples that change color. Okay? And they are symbolized as HIN, IN minus. HIN is the acidic form of the indicator. IN minus is the basic form of the indicator. Okay? بس يصير الأسيد بالindicator predominant, يعني the acid will give you the color of the solution. When the base of the indicator is dominant, it means that the color of the solution is controlled by the base couple of the indicator. وحنشوف example. هي الفكرة you have to know which indicator to use in which. Is it transcripting? Stop. Okay. The idea is you have to know which indicator to use for which pH. That is it. So for example, like we said, indicators are acid-base couples. They're acid-base couples. هني HIN, IN minus. مثل كل الacid bases, they react with H2A to give you H3O plus and IN minus. Now, if in your solution the majority of the species is HIN, you will see color 1. Okay? If in your solution the majority of the species is IN minus, you will see color 2. Very simple. HIN بنشوف color 1. It doesn't matter what the color is, you're not responsible to memorize it. IN minus, you will see color 2. The important thing is during titration, you will actually see a change in color from 1 to 2 or 2 to 1. It depends. But this is how what happens. So, in fact, when the pH decreases, انتبهوا على هيدي الرياكشن. When the pH decreases, شو بيصير بال H3O+? H3O+ increases. صح؟ When H3O plus increases, شو بيصير بالequilibrium? What happens to the equilibrium? You know, if H3O plus increases, then the reaction will shift towards the reactants. It will shift left. It will shift towards 2. It will shift to increase the value of HIN, and you will see color 1. Lax, the exact opposite. What happens when pH increases? The pH increases يعني you're going to the basic region. Basic region يعني ال H3O plus decrease. H3O plus decrease, it means that the reaction will shift towards the right. And IN minus will increase, then you will start to see color 2. وانتبهوا, the change in pH, the change in pH, whether H3O plus increase or H3O plus decrease, this is controlled by the acid of the system, مش الانdicator. الانdicator هو بس is side species that we use to monitor the color. So هيدي الvalue of H3O plus فعليا is controlled by the real couple of the system اللي هو الacid والbase that you are titrating. So depending on her value, if it increases, HIN dominates, you will see color 1. If it decreases, IN minus dominates and you will see color 2. Basically, HIN with IN minus are the same as an acid-base couple, okay? And the same as a buffer couple بالأحرى. They are controlled by pKa plus log IN minus على HIN. It means that the IN minus with HIN, they have a pKa. IN minus with HIN, they have a pKa. If the pH of your system is less than pKa, mean dominates. If the pH of your system is less than pKa, mean dominates. خدوا ال pKa لهون. pH minus pKa is negative. To remove log 10 to the minus. صارت 0 point. صارت IN minus if pH is less than pKa. يعني IN minus divided by HIN is less than 1. It means HIN dominates. يعني الcolor كيف كتبت أنا أوكي color 1. والعكس if pH is greater than pKa, it means the IN minus divided by HIN is greater than 1. It means IN minus dominates, so color 2. So now we know two things. We know that indicators are basically HIN, IN minus, and because this is an acid-base couple, they have a pKa. If the pH of the solution they are in, pH of the solution is less than their pKa, بنشوف the color of HIN. If the pH of the solution is greater than the pKa, their pKa اللي هي HIN, IN minus, means we see the color of IN minus. That's it. This is basically everything about indicators. So let's choose an indicator. To choose an indicator, you have to look at the pH of the system. وبالتحديد ال pH اللي انتوا بدكم تشوفوها. I need to see the pH at the equivalence point of the couple that I'm studying. الcouple اللي هي HAA minus. I need to determine when I cross the equivalence point of this couple. To do this, you compare هيدي ال pH at equivalence with the pKa of HIN, IN minus. For example, it's a very simple example بوضح لكم إياها كلها. This is my equivalence point of a strong acid versus strong base. The equivalence point is 7. The pH of the system, على equivalence بدها تكون قريبة من ال pKa للإنديكيتور. لأنه we said that the change in color will happen around the pKa of the indicator. If the pH is less than pKa, هنشوف ال color 1. If the pH is greater than pKa, بنشوف ال color 2. This is the pH at equivalence. So هيدا ال pH at equivalence, it has to encompass or it has to contain the pKa of your indicator in order to see a difference in colors. The pH at equivalence بدها تكون بالdomain of your pKa. لتشوفوا إنه هيدي ال pH قطعت ب this pKa. So if this is your pH at equivalence وهيدي ال pKa range, ال pKa range أنا لما بقول pKa range يعني قصدي من ال pKa minus 1 لل pKa plus 1. هون بيتغير ال color. قبل ال pKa minus 1 بنقول color 1. أنا بكتب الcolor غلط. بعد ال pKa plus 1 بنقول color 2. بين هيدول الاتنين بيتغير الcolor. So if my pH at equivalence is 7, can I use this pKa اللي هي 2؟ يعني ال color change بيصير بين ال 1 وال 3. Can I use this? Why? No, you cannot. Why? Because افترضوا انتوا بلشتوا ب pH equals 1 and you're titrating وال pH عم تكبر 1 2 3. بين ال 2 و 3 is the color change of your indicator. So when you cross 3 تغير الcolor عندكم للسيستم. You would think انتوا ساعتها بتفترضوا انه انا وصلت للايكوفالنس بوينت. بس in reality you did not reach the equivalence point. الانديكيتور اللي انتوا اخترتوه is wrong because it changed color before the equivalence point. The indicator has to change color during the equivalence point. بكل بساطة. The indicator has to change color during the equivalence point. So ال pH at equivalence بدها تكون بين ال pKa minus 1 للإنديكيتور وال pKa plus 1 للإنديكيتور in order to see a change in color. So نفس السؤال. pH at equivalence is 7. Can I use this? الرينج لإله ال pKa minus 1 ال pKa plus 1 change color هي between 1 and 10 and 12. Can I use this? If your pH at equivalence 7 يعني the color has to change at 7 and you choose an indicator between 10 and 12, is it okay? No, because the indicator will give you the change of color after you have reached equivalence point. After you have reached equivalence point. طلعوا هون. You have two good options. مين هن؟ طلعوا بالindicators that you have. You have two good options. What are they? Bromomethyl blue is a good option. It is a good option. Okay. And الفينولفتالين. لأنه remember شفتوا هيدي الجump كلياتها؟ It happens at 25 ml. So if you use bromomethyl blue or if you use phenolphthalein, phenolphthalein is very close. It's very close. The first choice is bromomethyl blue لأنه ال color change interval دغري coincide with the equivalence point. And phenolphthalein is also very good because even though it does not overlap, you have only a small space between it. So in fact, as soon as you hit 25, إذا استخدمتوا البروموميثيل blue, the color will change. And if you use phenolphthalein, the color will change with only a small error, like maybe less than 0.1. So in your case, these two are very good. Okay, again, طلعوا هون. This is a weak versus strong. Weak acid versus strong base, the pH at the equivalence point will be basic. This is the equivalence point. Which one is a good indicator? هيدا هو color interval, color change. هون بيصير color change. Which one is a good indicator? هيدا color change اللي هو pKa1 pKa -1 pKa +1 has to contain the equivalence point. عشان هيك it's a good indicator. So which one is a good indicator? In this case is phenolphthalein. Okay? And that's it. Yalla, if you have any questions,